I've thrown out some names. Andy Ludwig is a name that Tom Kakert of HawkeyeReport.com said on our show that Iowa had contacted. So he's a guy that's got to be in the mix. I know Paul Christ is a name that's going to be thrown out there. Tim Bolasek is a name that's going to be thrown out there. I mentioned the guy from Akron, Moorhead, right? Previous OC at Penn State. He was the head coach at Mississippi State when Iowa played him a few years back, I think. And then you have, trying to think of the other guy that was on my mind that I may have written it down. Oh, the guy that just got fired from Carolina in the NFL. What's his name? Frank Reich.
Oh.
He's a former quarterbacks coach, and I don't know if you don't think he's got experience coaching at the college level, but there's a guy who obviously has experience coaching offense at a very high level. They didn't, Carolina didn't look good this year. That's why he got fired, but he would be an option. One thing Brad did say that should encourage fans, and you decide how much stock you want to take into Brad Heinrich's words, but what Brad said on this show was that but he believes that Kirk will hire someone externally. That's not necessarily going out on a limb. Who else are you going to hire? John Budmeyer? I mean, there's nobody else that's qualified at this point. I don't think Liddell Betts is ready to be an OC. And the other thing he made a point of saying is he has reason to believe that Kirk is calling anybody and everybody and is having a very open mind to getting the best guy available. And he kind of fell back on, well, you got to keep in mind that Kirk has to get permission to spend, $1.52 million on a top tier OC. They've been, paying Brian $860,000 a year. But as I said, my response to Brad, I'm not, U of I athletic department accountant, but I can't imagine that the money's not there with what the new TV contract is bringing in. I think if you're the president and you don't approve that, how foolish is that? The money's there. Go throw. And I know people don't like throwing the name Ryan Grubb out there because it's probably a pipe dream, but go throw $2 million at Ryan Grubb and see what he says. Maybe he wants to be closer to home. Maybe he's got a family member who's older. He wants to be closer to. You don't know. So whoever you pursue, I hope that what Brad said is absolutely true and plays out as such. Paul Christ is a name that I know Erica said in the chat. She didn't like that name. She thinks it's getting tossed around too much. There are worse options, I would say that, but I also think there are probably better options out there. But it just comes down to what Kirk Ferentz is willing to do and what the university is willing to pay.
Wonder how many former NFL head coaches have dropped to a coordinator level in college, because that would be Frank Reich.
Well, I mean, what else is he? I mean, he was. I don't know what his coaching record at Carolina was. I could tell you he was the OC with the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. And that was a year where they had to rely on exceptional quarterback depth. Because remember, Carson Wentz went down, no pun intended, and Nick Foles came in, and didn't he lead him to a Super Bowl ring?
Yes.
And so I would think that Frank Reich had something to do with that. You're right. Maybe Iowa couldn't afford him. I wonder what he was getting paid. Do we even know what guys are getting paid at the...
as coordinators?
No, just head coaches in the NFL.
Head coaches in the NFL. They've got to be in the $10 to $12 million range.
So it looks like, let's see, $5 to $10 million. This is what sports... Okay. This is just an estimate, but this is what... yeah, I don't think there's anything official out there. But I guess the point is, he'd be taking a pay cut, but he just got fired. So beggars can't be choosers. Matt Rule went from... Wasn't he at Carolina too?
Yes.
Carolina's just a dumpster fire for coaches.
Yeah, they can't make a good decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you recall what Frank Reich's probably biggest claim to fame is?
Winning a Super Bowl with the Eagles, wasn't it?
Well, I think he's more known for this, but yeah, that's certainly a great accomplishment. He engineered the greatest comeback in the history of the NFL playoffs.
92-93. I remember reading that when I was researching. I don't remember that. I wasn't alive then, but I read that, I think, Wikipedia or wherever it was when I first looked him up.
Yes, I remember it well.
How big was that comeback?
Down 35-3 in the third quarter, playing for the injured Jim Kelly.
Wow. That's
Yes.
something, yeah. So, I mean, what do you think about him? He's 60.
Oh my goodness. I think that would be a tremendous hire. That would be a
Okay.
great hire.
He's 62 years old. Kirk's got NFL connections. Here's another name that you could toss out there, and that's Jason Garrett. You know, is he like, I know he was a finalist for the Stanford job a year or two ago. There was rumors that he was a finalist for the Duke job at one point. He could probably get a head coaching job. Oh, he most certainly could get a head coaching job at the G5 level. I don't know if a P5 would hire him at this point, but I'd certainly wouldn't mind taking a look at him as an OC at Iowa, assuming Kirk's willing to let those guys operate. I would love
Mhm.
that. I'd love a former NFL head coach being, as long as they're not just old and tired. Like Frank Reich is 62 years old. I don't want a guy here who's kind of coming here on his last leg, like Greg Davis kind of did. I think Ken O'Keefe toward the end was kind of, he to me, Ken, and other people noticed the same thing. Ken kind of looked like maybe he'd lost a little bit of passion for the sport. Now, maybe he'd argue that. Maybe that'd be unfair of me to say. That is unfair of me to say, but if you're going to hire an older guy, which there's nothing wrong with that, especially at the coordinator position, especially since Kirk, is going to be gone here in a few years. If you're going to hire an older guy, it better be someone who still has spunk and drive to keep coaching.